Hey guys, I have here the long lost podcast of Carmine and me talking about season 8 after our rewatch, where we discuss episodes 3 and 4. Yeah, it's late. Like, really late. What happened? Well, it turns out both Carmine and I have some huge life changing things going on. His big thing hit, and then when he found some time to send me the podcast, my thing hit. Anyway, despite this conversation being a month old, it actually holds up, especially the second half. So if you're still not finished bitching about Game of Thrones, enjoy. Sorry for the delay.
All right, so Preston, we are back. But before we begin, as always, guys, we're on SoundCloud and iTunes. You know the drill. The previous episode where we cover episodes 1 and 2, that was supposed to be like longer, but apparently you needed it sooner to put your promo in.
I did.
The reason I bring that up is because, and I'll tell this to the audience. Preston's always afraid you guys are going to call him a shill. But actually, you are, and I am too to some extent. But actually, I read your comment section. You don't. I do every now and then.
I read some comments.
Dude, you read like 3 and then you go like take a nap. Stop it. But I read your comment section, and I actually saw a couple of people praising you for getting the sponsorship with Audible, right?
Well, it's like they think it's like a legitimate product, and therefore like some sort of like achievement of some sort.
No, Audible is a legitimate product. It really is. It's a legitimate company. But I see a lot of people in your comments section praising you for, getting a legitimate promotion thing. So, nobody's calling you a shill. Your fans are super happy and excited about it. By the way, speaking of your fans, some of them have taken up, because, you're a persona non grata in a lot of Game of Thrones Facebook groups. Some of your fans have taken the initiative and basically started your own fan page, Facebook fan page, aside from your main page, the Preston Jacobs Theory posting group. Shout out to them because they're fucking hilarious. What was the one? We were just looking at it before we started. What were you laughing at? What was the one?
I was laughing that somebody posted a poll of which one of these theories is correct, and they have a whole bunch of them. 1 + 1 = 2, R + L = D, D + D = T, and all the way at the bottom is R + L = J. But I got a kick out of that.
So yes, shout out to those guys because those guys are hilarious. So shout out to those guys. If you're a Preston Jacobs fan, definitely go join them. So Preston, let's get into episode 3, The Long Night. And what more can we say about this episode that hasn't been said by everybody and their mothers, literally, other than the best way I could describe the episode, and try to follow me on this.
Yeah.
The best way I can describe this episode is if you imagine, if you will, if you encounter an incredibly gorgeous woman. Let's say you're a single man in another world, another time. You're a single man and you encounter this incredibly hot woman, 10 out of 10, your perfect girl, right? Who's not your wife. Who's, I'm sure, it's perfect for you, but just you're single. You encounter the perfect woman, and then all of a sudden you go back to her house, once again banging body, you have a great conversation, everything's clicking. And all of a sudden, you find out she's a Trump supporter. That's this episode. You think it's going to be amazing.
Whoa.
You think it's going to... Well, for you. You think it's going to be amazing. And then... It's not the worst episode this season, but it is the most disappointing because we had such high hopes for it, for the whole White Walker battle. And there it is. Am I spot on? Am I spot on with the whole Trump thing?
It's watching it again, I guess I had similar feelings the first time. Like, there are parts of the episode that are golden. Like, it's filmed really, really well. Like, Melisandre coming out of the dark is beautiful.
Always cool.
The lighting of the trench is beautiful. Once you insert it into a larger story, it doesn't make sense. But there are some things that I did appreciate. I thought the ridiculousness of it all, where at the very end their bodies just falling from the sky. The battles kept getting bigger and bigger and grander, and it was like, how are you going to top the Battle of the Bastards? And the only way you can top it is by having, bodies literally falling from the sky, which I imagine they're falling from the dragon because they'd clung to the dragon, or maybe they're just coming over the wall. But it was just kind of this ridiculous scene that the battle is raining men, literally. So I mean, there are parts of the episode that I really like, and then there are parts that I just really loathe. Like, I think the opening is a long shot, and I'm a sucker for long shots, but then they don't do anything with the long shot. Like, I love a good long shot.
Everybody loves citing Goodfellas with that long shot with
Oh, or gosh, there's this insane Thai fighting movie with where the guy has to find his pet elephant.
I think John, is it Tony Jaa he's in it?
Yeah, it's Tony Jaa. And there's the protector, I think it is in English. In Thai, I think it's called Ong Bak. And
Yeah, Ong Bak. Yeah, I'm aware.
yeah,
Of it.
it's a ridiculous movie on many levels, and it's
He does Muay Thai.
yeah, he does Muay Thai. It's also a horrible plot in the sense that for some reason they make the villain this evil trans guy, and for no reason, just to, I don't know. But there's this long shot fight in the middle where he walks into this building and then climbs several stories, like fighting people, and it goes on for like 12 minutes or something, and I love it. I love the freaking long shot. Or somebody showed me the True Detective one. I thought it was really cool. The scene from Atonement on the beach is really great, and then you just see this like pointless long shot, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like, it's just Tyrion goes and he stands, and then he leaves the scene, and then Sam goes and he stands, and you're like, this is a long shot? Like, what are you doing? It's
They were trying to do some cool stuff with it, and I think I showed you the article. Like, the guy who originally, I think, either wrote it or directed it, he wanted it to be more brutal than it was. Like, he wanted Jorah to charge in there and then come back, and he's like half dead or whatever, like parts of him is missing. He wanted to really sink in that this was like a battle where shit goes down. But quite frankly, I think the problem with this episode in general, is that it felt like a dreaded episode from that should have been part of last season. Like, in order for the White Walkers to truly be like an insane menace, I feel like season 7, instead of having 7 episodes, should have had the original 10, and this episode should have been the episode 9, or at least episode 8 and 9. They really should have extended it in a way, if you think about it, because the reason everybody feels so shallow is that the White Walkers were dealt with in one episode. An entire series-long thread is just over with and done. And it really should have been the whole clutch of the entire season. Like, it really should have...
Yeah.
It should have been the focus of several episodes. Maybe Winterfell fell, and then they fall back to Mokalan, like,
right. And there probably should have been more loss, rather than just, Jorah and Theon, and who else, like Dolores Ed, who isn't even a B character, he's down the list on the D list,
He's background. He's not secondary, he's background.
Right. Like, we didn't have a single A-list character die. Like, you kind of feel like on when the stakes are this high, you should have had an A-list character die. A Jaime, things like that.
And Arya dying, I mean, really would have like set the stakes.
Yeah. Oh God. Or losing something, like I say, losing her arm, or something, some sort of loss, but there was none.
In the books, doesn't Brienne at some point get like her face bitten off or something, or like her cheek?
Yeah, Brienne dying would have been something. Yeah, but she does get her cheek bit off in the book, and so you could have easily had that sort of thing. And then who knows? Then you could have had like her. See, now I'm getting ideas for my fixed series. And then you could have a scene where Jaime's nursing her or something, and then he's in the bedroom with her, and he's nursing her back to health because she's gotten a bite out of her cheek, and then then one thing leads to another, much like Rob and Jane Westerling or something. You never know. Again, there are pieces of the episode that are very beautiful and well done. Certain shots are very creepy and mystical. I mean, even though the Dothraki riding off is stupid strategically, it was very creepy for them to disappear. And I have to say, I do congratulate them on resetting the mystery of the White Walkers a little bit, because like you get to see more and more of the White Walkers, and then in season 7 we see them full out, and there's nothing mystical about them again, and you're like, well, now that we know what they look like and what they're capable of, is there more mystery? And I do think they successfully reset the army, reset our ideas. Like, there was darkness out there, and we're like, oh, what are they? And people ride off, and then we just kind of vanish, and it's this horror element. And I thought that was really well done. They were successfully resetting the mystery, which is difficult, and so I'll congratulate them on that.
Yeah,
But,
I gotta agree with you there, but let me ask you one question.
yeah.
So, the Dothraki charging in there was dumb strategically. I'm sure the showrunners and even the writers knew this, but is it okay to sacrifice dumb strategic plans where the audience rolls their eyes for the effect of the horror? Because the Dothraki riding in there and slowly disappearing, like the lighting slowly disappearing, I love that shot. But it was fucking dumb for them to charge in there. So is that a good trade-off, horror for, smart decisions?
I mean, I think you have to look at, it's a cost-benefit analysis, like you're allowed to have, people allow plot holes if something cool comes out of the plot hole. You allow a certain leeway depending on how cool what you get out from it. So I think, I actually think that charging the Dothraki and having them disappear like that was kind of neutral in the sense. Like, it was really stupid strategically. It was a very beautiful scene, and then it didn't amount to much because Jorah comes back and many Dothraki come back, so they do kind of ruin it in that sense. I don't know. Like I say, you have to look at the analysis of it all. You have to wonder if it's worth it. Like, am I going to spend this capital? No, because you're burning it. You know that you have the suspension of disbelief from the audience, and you have so much to burn, and so you have to decide whether it's worth it.
The one thing I think they should have really added in there was Melisandre coming back with at least some acolytes of the Lord of Light, at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maybe 2 or 3. And on the topic of strategic battle, there's a YouTuber channel. I normally don't promote other YouTubers on here, but I got to give this guy a shout out. Invicta, I think I'm saying this right. He has a video that has almost 2 million views. It's called Improved Battle Plans, a defense in depth for the Battle of Winterfell. And it is a must. Have you seen this? It's a must watch.
I have.
It's amazing. I recommend it to the audience. Definitely check it out.
No, I've stolen a little bit of it for my for my fixed series, but not too much. It's just kind of mentioned that more or less it's his strategy.
And I like how you say, like, it does reset the mystery of the White Walkers a little bit. Even in the Night King, I mean, Dragonfire doesn't hurt him. So, and not to mention, they're using like the blizzard winds, the strong winds to counteract the dragons. Like, they learn. I think it was DVD commentary or an article that I read about how the only reasons the White Walkers started wearing armor is because of what Sam did. Sam stabbed it in the back, and then all of a sudden, next time we see them, they have armor on. So they do learn.
Yeah,
I like that.
And it totally prevented Arya's dagger from killing the Night King. It was No, I think it was complete coincidence that they started wearing armor. I do not think that was intended by the showrunners.
You think
I think
so?
they were just like, no.
That's what they said.
I think. Really?
Yeah, that's what they said in one of the. I don't know if it was an article or DVD commentary. The only reason the White Walkers started wearing that like samurai-esque armor is because of what happened when Sam stabbed the other one, which makes me wonder if it
didn't help at all. It didn't help at all.
Well, I mean, we never really get to see them fighting all that much. The only time we ever see them fight is in season 5, Jon Snow versus that one guy. Actually, no, in season 7 as well.
Yeah.
So twice, meh. But it makes me wonder if the Night King really can see through the eyes of the other White Walker generals that he creates. Like the Night King himself, I love his abilities, and the fact that they are able to give him more abilities and more of a mystery aura behind him is great. I just, like everybody else, hate that he was taken out like a punk bitch in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of Battle Droid. kill them all, like kind of thing. Somebody described it as it's like a video game where you beat the boss and all the Goombas like decide to stop fighting. Like that's not, it's just not realistic that kill one guy, that he would make himself vulnerable. They even lampshade it. Jaime even says like, well, if he's that vulnerable, he would never expose himself. And then they're like, well, yeah, he would, because he wants to kill Bran himself. Why? That's, it's ridiculous. It's like Hitler wanting to be on the front lines. Like, it's just not something that would happen, But, they wanted some neat little way to, tidy up the whole situation.
Well, to be fair, I will say I do like the aesthetics. If anything, the episode is basically a series of, never mind. Like you get really hyped up for how awesome and cool, like, everything is turning out to be, and then there's always something that's so retarded that happens that ruins your enjoyment. Like the white giant coming in and like fucking people up, and you're like, oh, that's so cool, and Lyanna kills him.
Lyanna Moore, yeah, that was really stupid.
Oh my god, the Night King is gonna kill Bran. Holy shit! Arya kills him instead.
Oh, by the way, in my rewatch, I caught something that I didn't realize like how horrible it was, but like. So Lyanna Mormont, when she's talking to Jorah in episode 2, Jorah's like, dude, you shouldn't fight. Like, you're the future of the house, and why don't you hide in the crypts? And she says, I will not hide underground. And then she points to the ground, and you're like, oh God, like, why, who would do that? Like, who would say, like, I will not hide underground while everyone else... And she points to the... Who would hide on... Who would point to the... Yeah, that was a ridiculously dumb scene. Mm-hmm. I don't know where all the other white giants went, but... Because there were many.
There were many, yes.
Why would a white giant pick up somebody and bring him close to their face? Like, that's just...
Yeah, why not just smash her into the ground? Right.
Yeah, do anything. Stomp her, ignore her, anything.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I meant. Like this is a moment, this is one of those shows where it's like a moment of, oh, that's so cool. Oh, never mind. This was the entire episode.
And I do have to say that everything that happened in the crypts was horrible. Like every single thing that happened in the crypts.
Remember the major theory that everybody had for some reason that they thought once again, cool. I don't know if this was one of the fake leaks, but there was a lot of people like really touting that the thing that was going to happen was that the Night King himself was going to reveal to be a Stark because he came from a hidden door in the crypts and he slaughters everyone in there.
I had heard that because there's a long-standing book theory that the others are going to cross not through the wall or over the wall,
but under it.
But under it through Gorn's way. So in the books, Ygritte spends a whole bunch of time like telling the story of Gorn, about how this wildling named Gorn had crossed under the wall through tunnels, and then he got lost, and so there were still wildlings living in these tunnels. He claims, but that there is a way to go all the way to Winterfell, under the earth, through the tunnels, which points to subterranean society during the long night and all this kind of stuff. But and so this idea is that it would be quite a surprise from George if the wall never falls. No one ever climbs over the wall. Like Jon has dreams of the others climbing over the wall. People think that the wall is going to fall. Horn of Jormund. And that the way to subvert the expectations is that the others would come through Gorn's way. This random thing that Ygritte mentioned, in season 3, and that would be it. So that it would be something, but didn't happen. Dragons took down the wall, and the others just kind of marched straight to Winterfell.
Well, I will say, though, if anything, the episode was aesthetically pleasing, if you think about it. Because, I mean, say what you will about Game of Thrones season 8 and even season 7 sucking, but everybody is still on point with costumes, and I can't say anything about the lighting guy. I guess he was on break that episode, but everything else is still on point for looking good. And not only that, when was the last time you saw medieval knights fighting the undead, other than the Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 3?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm fine with a lot of the battles. I thought that the stuff in the field looked pretty good. I even thought the stuff going over the wall was fine, and the close combat situation. I kind of wish Sam died, only in this, not because I don't like the character, but Jon sees Sam and then makes a conscious decision not to rescue him because he's got more important things to do. He has to take out the Night King. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that to be a sacrifice that Jon made. He sees his friend, his friend is in trouble, and he chooses to sacrifice his friend.
I don't know, man. I like what we did get. I hate to interrupt you, but I like what we did get, which is when Jon comes
him whimpering in a puddle.
Huh? Oh yeah,
I'm whimpering in a puddle.
He comes into Winterfell and he sees Sam. Sam's just like, like in a pile of dead bodies. He just looks at him. No,
I mean it was over the top of the episode was very Sam Raimi.
Yes.
Over the top ridiculousness, extreme, the bodies falling from the sky, and I like Sam being in that puddle, being oh my god, this is so fucking ridiculous, wallowing in a puddle of blood and bodies, but I just wish that there was some sort of cost for Jon.
No, of course.
He abandons his friend, and that's...
He gives him a look of disgust and just runs off to go do whatever.
Now, I do not think that him screaming at the dragon was really, well done. I think maybe if they spent more time, on Jon's emotions and him erupting in that, but I didn't think that it was earned, that he would have realistically just gotten up and screamed at a dragon.
It's just a lot of really weird, dumb decisions. The dragon can really fuck up the walls of Winterfell with its fire, but it can't burn that thing that Jon is hiding behind.
Right. It can knock down the wall. Yeah. And in the final episode, we see the dragons explode the walls of King's Landing. But if there's a dirt pile that Jon jumps behind,
it's a magical dirt pile because he's behind it.
No, I mean, there were a lot of bad choices. I think everything with the Arya story, in the episode, was atrocious.
Yeah.
I mean, her first fighting is fine. She's got her double-handed spear. She's Darth Mauling it. It's all good. And then all of a sudden, the tone switches, and she's hiding from the dead, which doesn't make any sense because
she gets knocked the fuck out a little. So they knock some sense into her a little bit when she's trying to fight them all off. They are getting overwhelmed, which once
they needed to establish that. I mean, they needed to establish her fear, and this is the problem with Arya in general. Is they'll make Arya scared and run, and then they'll make Arya into this fearless badass. She's running from the waif, scared as hell, and then she fights the waif, or she's running from the dead and she's fighting the dead. She's fearful and she's fearless. Off and on this switch goes. And there's nothing in between, and there's no transitions, That's just...
what the problem is?
Arya.
The problem is that the writers, they don't want to risk making this strong female character look weak as shit. That's the struggle here. They want to make her human, but to make her human, they got to make her look weak sometime. But they don't want to do that because the fan service. So it's like a struggle and conflict.
I think you're playing up the gender a little too much because they do the same thing with Sam. Sam is courageous and then he's not courageous and then he's courageous and then he's not courageous. That's just it's nothing about Arya makes any sense. She's clearly my least favorite character. I've never sugarcoated this. I think she's just a dreadful, dreadful character. I don't know why she's the favorite character of many. I don't get it, but I I don't know. Can you explain it to me? Do you understand the appeal?
I don't know. I think Arya is loved mostly by casual fans who enjoy that like type of tomboy, always trying to make her way in the world type of character, kind of like Sarah Connor or even Ripley from Aliens. You know, people gravitate naturally towards that type of character. Not to mention, Arya just stands out. There's a certain part of the male fantasy that enjoys that type of Arya character. The girl who doesn't wear skirts, the girl who doesn't want to be rescued by a prince, and a lot of people really like that. A lot of people really root for that type of female because it's different. It stands out. You know, and it's a shame too because you have characters like Brienne who really do deserve praise, and they barely get any of it.
But you bring up a good you bring up a good point with Brienne. Like Brienne is a great fighter. She's just as awesome. You know, like her character is consistent. Like it's, you know, she's honorable. Arya is just all over the map. Like one moment we're supposed to be like, oh, Arya, she cares about that mother and daughter. She cared about that woman in the play, you know, and then. And the next moment, she's feeding people pies made of human flesh. It's all over the map. Like, you just don't know what she is. I mean, I guess people like that. People just think it's super badass. I don't know. But I think there's nothing appealing about her. She's just so unlikable to me.
Well, it's like my buddy Dave, who thought Arya killing the Night King was like the coolest thing ever. HBO appeals to the casuals who like that character. I've argued for this multiple times. I think Theon should have been the one to kill the Night King. I think he should have been the prince that was promised, and you could argue that he fits a lot of the criteria for the prince, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, Arya is just really, her doing it is just major fan service, and I guess it's subverting expectations since everybody expected Jon to do it. But at the same time, like I can respect the idea behind it, trying to subvert our expectation. I can respect that, not having Jon do it because we all expected it. But at the same time, the choice could have been better.
You know, I just thought it would be better if it were like Davos. You know, if somebody
Davos.
No, but seriously, like, you know, you wouldn't have expected.
That's true.
Expected him, you know. But he's at the same time, he's like part of the story. You know, he's part of the Jon story. You know.
Davos was fighting fiercely with Bronzion Royce. Off screen.
Yes, he was. Yes, off screen.
Alice Karstark came in to help him out. That's why we didn't see her.
Yeah. Well, like I say, she was off playing with Ghost, like playing catch with Ghost in the you know, after he came back.
And that's the whole like clutch of the situation is that the entire season itself, people may think it sucks and it was fairly bad. But it was aesthetically pleasing, with the exception of this episode. Things were too dark, characters didn't make any sense, certain things didn't make any sense, characters disappear or don't do it much at all. It's just... This is weird for Game of Thrones to have an episode of this magnitude, but have bad execution on it. I mean, I hate Season 6. Battle of the Bastards was fucking fantastic. And then you come to this episode, and it's like... They really dropped the ball, and that's the major issue here. Like, the rest of the season... once again, was bad, but was still aesthetically pleasing. Here, not so much. Everything is rather gray and blotchy and dark. And the one thing they really needed to ace was like the dragon-on-dragon fighting, and that fell through as well. A lot of stuff here fell through. And that's the problem I have with it. A good idea, but very bad execution.
The dragon versus dragon combat was horrible.
The dragon versus dragon combat was okay. I just wish we could have seen more of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I couldn't tell what was going on. It was just fast cuts of people's faces, and then, you know, I didn't actually see any dragons fighting. I just kind of saw a dragon wing, a dragon head, Jon's face, Dany's face, Night King's face. And some stuff happened. I couldn't even tell which dragon was which.
Well, to be fair, someone on Reddit took the clip of the dragons fighting and actually brightened it up, like professionally brightened the fuck out of it up. And it looked really cool. From what I saw, it looked really cool in that brightness. So, it's just, I don't know what they were thinking with the whole lighting thing. I really don't know what they were thinking. That was atrocious.
Yeah, so what do you think of the dead coming out of the tombs with their super strength and killing the people in the tombs, in the crypts?
We were doing the pre-game show, and people kept saying, like, do you think that's gonna happen? And we both were like, no, that's not gonna happen. Like, they don't, like, they're bones. Like, they don't have like that strength to like move stone slabs. and then they did it, and I'm like, and everybody's like, we
They
told you
punched
so.
through. They punched through the stone.
Punch through the wall too. We told you so. Well, we didn't think it would happen because that's so stupid. Wouldn't think they would do that.
I'm reminded, the second time through, I'm still reminded as well of the horrible Sansa Tyrion scene where they look at each other and then she pulls out the dagger and you're like, are they going to commit suicide?
I was like, right?
I mean, the fact that like it wasn't just me, like I talked to like many people later about it and they're like, yeah, no, I was really convinced that they were going to kill themselves as well.
God, that would have been so fucking depressing.
It's like at the end of you remember I was saying how like at the end of season 7 or near the end where John is in bed recovering from the and he like just completely goes like limp and you're like, oh my God, did John die? Like, and the fact that I was like. Like other people were like, I thought the same thing too. I was like, oh my God, John died, like right there. Oh my God, they're gonna kill themselves.
It would have been insane if like Sansa went through with it and Tyrion just couldn't. He was too afraid.
I mean, no one died in the crypts except for some randoms. That was also very sad. You know, had they killed somebody, you know, somebody died in the crypts. It would have been. Yeah, interesting.
So the episode, I would argue it's not the worst episode of Game of Thrones. It's not. But it is the most disappointing because everybody had such high hopes for this episode. Such high hopes. And it really just fell flat. Once again, it's a series of, oh, that was so cool. Oh, never mind. That's the entire episode for me. Like just really cool moments. And I will say there are some cool moments where I don't get disappointed. Like the part where the Night King is walking towards Winterfell and Jon's going after him, and he just turns around and lifts the dead around Jon. He won't fight him one-on-one. I like that. That's so cool. Like, he knows better than to take this fucking guy on one-on-one. Jon has killed a couple of White Walkers. He's not taking that chance, and he's gonna play dirty by raising the dead. And I like that. That was a cool scene. Dany, Dracarys on the Night King, him, that little smirk. Once again, that was pretty fucking badass. Like, there are some cool moments in here, but then you just have, like, eye-rolling moments, like Beric just holding the door and, like, having that, like, that Jesus-like moment.
Yeah, that was a little heavy-handed. Now, I'm wondering if what you thought of the Arya dropping the dagger scene. Did you think that was clever, badass?
Dude, you know the answer to that. No, that's the stupidest fucking thing ever.
Oh, it's funny. Is rewatching it, I'm like, she actually pulls the impossible. Like, I was seeing of where the Night King, where she's holding her dagger and where the Night King has her. She somehow drops it and it moves seriously like 3 feet to the right in order for her to catch it. Mm-hmm. Like, take a look at like the picture again. Like, and you actually think about it. She's got her left hand going down and then somehow like she's able to drop the dagger and from her left side, and it somehow like falls down to her right side. Like gravity actually pulls it like sideways. Like, it's not how.
Preston, stop analyzing this so like intensely. Like,
oh my
you're gonna
God,
go crazy.
It's dreadful. It's dreadful. Now, of course, they do a cut. So it seems fine, but like, there's no way it would happen in real life. Like, there's no way at all.
You're gonna drive yourself crazy just going into this. Like, you really are. Like, you really, like I said, not the worst episode. I reserved that title for the last episode of this entire show. that is the worst episode. But this is the most disappointing, especially how the White Walkers just, no questions are answered. I guess all of our questions will be answered in the Blood Moon prequel spinoff. Okay, fine, but I don't know, man. It's not the best.
Empires of Ash.
Oh, Lord. Don't even bring that up.
I mean, I guess they were holding it for the prequels.
Yeah, of course.
The fact that nothing is answered.
And that makes
Wild.
sense. And that really does make sense. It's just this didn't feel like the mid-season. Cuz this episode is like the mid-season, like, you know, like
Yeah, absolutely.
So this really should have been a dreaded episode. And we should have had, you know, a couple more deaths here and there. Definitely Arya. Arya really should have gone. Like, after this episode, she is just useless. In fact, someone was mentioning it. She doesn't use any of her faceless men abilities in this entire season, actually.
No. Her only faceless man ability is, you know, general fighting and leaping out of nowhere, you know. But yeah, that's it. No, there was no reason. I mean, it's funny to like, you know, go like it's the same with Bran, like to go north of the wall to gain this like superpower and then not to use the superpower, you know. And it's the same with Arya. Like she goes and she earns this superpower and she uses that superpower to kill Walder Frey. Like that's what it was for. I mean, she could have. I mean, she didn't need to. The wine was poisoned. Like everyone probably would have drunk the wine.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Well, I guess she needed to impersonate him to send out the Raven in order to get everybody to come. But yeah, that's about it. She used her superpower to like send a Raven to collect all the Freys. She trained for years for that.
So.
Oh.
I had my fanboy goggles on when I first saw this episode. I gave it a 9. Dropped it.
Whoa!
I know. Jot it down to a.
Oh, how the times have changed.
Jot it down to a 7. Final verdict, I will give it a 6. It really is.
The rewatch value drops.
Yeah, it really. On your fourth viewing, like once again, it really solidifies. There are a lot of disappointing moments here. You had high hopes for it. Like no one has high hopes for episode 1, 2, 4, maybe 5, but like there's a lot of high hopes for the Battle of Winterfell. We heard a lot about it from the leaks and all that stuff. It's gonna be crazy. You see a lot of like leaked scenes, leaked images. You get hyped for it, and then it just falls flat.
Yeah. I mean, I just have to say that I thought that Melisandre like did a great job as an actress. She was very creepy coming in. She had a good death. The scenes with her were the highlights for me. And I thought like the Sam Raimi-esque like ridiculousness near the end, I thought was also a highlight, like bodies falling from the sky. Mm-hmm. And I thought there were some good visuals with the pit and with the Dothraki disappearing. But other than that, total trash. Total and utter trash.
Your final verdict?
Total trash.
Well, give me a score.
No, I mean, I would give it a 3.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty brutally bad for me. It's just so many things. Like at first I'd be like, it's like you want to be nice and you want to be like, oh, it's not so bad. But then you start like accumulating it. You start going, well, wait a minute. Like Lyanna Mormont stabbing a giant in the face. Arya stabbing the Night King, like the whole crypt scene, the suicide pact, Theon dying for no reason, like Jorah just dying for like all of a sudden like perking his head up like a dog and being like, oh, Dany's in trouble. I've got to go save her and die, like because that's what we need to have Jorah do, die saving Dany. It's just disappearing characters. Like it's just
originally Jorah wasn't supposed to die saving Dany. Like I guess he was supposed to join the Night's Watch with Jon, but I don't think Jorah would stand by and let Dany be stabbed like that. That is
no. I mean, if anybody that's still, he would have killed Jon immediately after.
How do you
just like Grey Worm would have stabbed Jon immediately afterwards.
How do you write Jorah's character if he survives? How do you write Jorah's character to stand by and allow Jon to do that? Like, how do you... This is a man that has devoted a good chunk of the last few years of his career to defending this woman.
Right. This is a man who saw her walk out of a pyre.
Yeah, and how do you write that? How do you make sense of this guy just being
who's seen the great Jorah was the unique thing about Jorah is he's there for all of like Dany's great moments of strength.
All her miracles.
Like her, yeah, like her overcoming her brother and standing up to him, her surviving the pyre and losing her baby, and like, you know, going through the Red Waste together, navigating Karth and murdering a dude by locking him in a safe, overthrowing the slavers, you know, like he's there the whole time. And then at Vastoth Rock again, like walking out of the pyre again, like, and so it's just ridiculous. It's, yeah, no, I mean, you can understand why he would, but then again, Grey Worm was there too. Grey Worm, you know, owes everything to her, to Dany, and you know, and as do all of those Dothraki. They're all her blood riders, and it's their, for honor's sake, they need to avenge her death. But I guess they're, you know, as I said, my excuse for why the Dothraki stay in Westeros is to keep Jon from coming back. They have to be there. That's my honeypot.
I'm just surprised there are any Dothraki left after that fucking slaughter. People were trying to say like it was racist to have the Dothraki charge in there, and just to get rid of, I guess, the brown people. Which I don't know.
But they respawned. They
respawn. They respawned.
Yeah.
Like I said, yeah. I think a 3 is a bit too harsh. It's just. I think for a show like Game of Thrones, having an average or below average episode, which is what I would call this, a below average episode, is atrocious enough as it is, because this is supposed to be one of the best television shows ever made, and just having an episode that just is not up to par with what came in the first few seasons is just really a bad mark on the people involved. It really is.
I mean, the thing is, just because something's expensive and beautiful doesn't mean it's not a piece of crap. I mean, there are some really beautiful scenes in Batman v Superman. There is some really incredible stuff. It's very impressive in Waterworld. I mean, you know, I understand there's the whole, like, we got to give him a certain grade for effort, but it's like, at some point you're like, oh my God, like, this is some high quality crap. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, you're like, oh, he gave me a toilet made of solid gold that doesn't flush. And you're like, it doesn't flush.
Is that what we're saying episode 3 is? A solid gold toilet that doesn't flush?
Yes.
I like this.
Solid gold toilet that doesn't flush.
I like this. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know. I just can't. It's the writers, it's the showrunners. I can't. You know, everybody does a good job. You know, all the actors and actresses, costume guys, weapon guys, you know. Oh,
the costumes are wonderful. Some of the shots are genius shots, and then some are ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's such a mixed bag. And that's almost jarring. Like, if it were all crap, it would almost be easier than it being like having these incredible highs of incredibly cool scenes followed by an incredibly horrible scene. That's almost like weirdly jarring that you can have that go back and forth like that.
Yeah. Solid gold toilet that doesn't flush. I like that. That is this episode to it. Yeah, you're right. You're not. You're absolutely right. But Preston, let's get to episode 4. Okay, so episode 4, I gotta say, this is the episode where I feel like a majority of the fan base gave up on season 8.
It's an odd episode. I think the Dany turn, which happens in this episode immediately, just soured a lot of people. But also, it's a very jarring episode. It's essentially 2 episodes. You know, the recovery from Winterfell, and then all of a sudden, like, the Cersei plot. You know, like taking on Cersei.
The first 20 minutes felt like it would belong in like an episode 10, because, you know, like I said, episode 3 felt like an episode 9, like a dreaded episode, and then like the first 20 minutes of this feels like an episode 10, like the closing of the season. You know, where it's the aftermath of the big battle and everybody's just kind of like relaxing and trying to, you know, come to terms with just what just happened. And I will say they did the whole Jon and Dany thing well. for a little bit, because at one point after the party, she comes to his room and she's like begging him, like, don't tell nobody. Blah, blah, blah. They did that well, I thought. I like that. But I do like how you point out that she feels alone, and this is kind of by design, because for some reason Grey Worm and Missandei aren't allowed at the party.
Yeah, that's what's really weird. See, had Missandei died as well at the battle, then it maybe would have been more justified, Like yes, they do mention Jorah. Like, Jon comes in and he talks about Jorah. And, but I guess it should have just been more explicit about, like, okay, like, Jorah was so important that without him, like, Dany is lost. Of course, Jorah hasn't really been with Dany for years, so it's also kind of odd, So, like, what happened? What made Dany turn? What made her feel alone? I don't know, and I think neither did the audience.
Had they established, because you can kind of tell this is going on in the books, there's layers of it in Fire and Blood, but had they actually established that not only are the dragons, her children, but she's also connected to them, like, mentally.
Yeah. And
every time each one of them dies, part of her mental blocks just fall and crumble, and she just goes a little crazy over time. Had they established something like that, it would have made more sense. Now that Viserion is dead, and Rhaegal dies in this episode, and she's losing friends left and right. Her mental state is just going. And had they tied her mental state to her dragons, it would have made more sense. But they didn't do that.
Right, but the order is off too. You have Dany supposedly going crazy at the banquet, and then her dragon dies. And then Missandei
I don't think that was her going crazy. I think that was just pure desperation, because she does feel, that nobody likes her. She's used to everybody kind of bowing down to her, what happened in season 1 with the Dothraki, like, revering her, and, Viserys getting jealous over that, and, the Myronese people and the Yunkish, all revere her as mother, Misa. And, I see that as more as desperation than her just going crazy.
Right, but they focused in on her with the camera, and they made it look creepy. And then Varys was looking at her suspiciously.
That was so dumb.
In order, so, like, you can't say that, like, they weren't trying to portray her as crazy. They were.
They were. It just didn't come off like that.
It just didn't. And it was so sudden and jarring, and no one liked it. It's an odd. So, I don't know. So the first part of the episode is, super sappy. They say their goodbyes to the dead characters, whatevs. Mm-hmm. And then you've got this horrible banquet. Just the banquet is just ridiculously bad all around. Like, that stupid drinking game that they brought back that no one likes. I don't know how the writers suddenly thought that this drinking game thing that Tyrion does is, like, good entertainment. That they decided to bring it back 3 times. Like, why? Like, why? And to bring up that Brienne is supposed to be a virgin, like, her nickname is Brienne the Maid of Tarth, like, the Maid of Tarth, like.
I do like how you point out, like, Dany's just sitting there having a sip of her Starbucks coffee, and Varys just looks over, and he's like, oh my god, she's sitting there doing nothing. She's going crazy. It just comes out of nowhere. His facial expressions when he's looking at her. Oh no. I've seen this madness one time before. It didn't scare me then. It does now.
Right.
Like, it's just so stupid.
It's like you backed Viserys. And her staring at like looking somewhere at a banquet. Like, it's so out of left field. And then these stupid things like Tormund praising Jon for riding a dragon when Dany has been riding a dragon for years. Like, it's just so obvious.
And well, he doesn't know that. Like, it's Tormund. He doesn't care. He's drunk. He's in the middle of it. I'll forgive that.
Fine. And then the fact that, like, they bring back just a lot of shit that people have hated and made fun of. Like, why do they keep having, like, Podrick be this sex god? Like, why do they need to have, Tripod be the sex god? Like, why does he need to have bang
fan
two
service.
Girl? But is it what fan was like, yeah, Podrick.
Dude, that's like a huge thing in, like, the community. Like it's fan service. Bringing back that drinking game. I guess some people liked it because it was really fun in season 1 with Bronn and Shay and Tyrion. And then the whole Jaime.
Was it really
I guess
fun?
that's the only explanation I have. Leave me alone. But Jamie and Brienne getting together, I mean, that's also a bit of fan service because everybody's like been wanting it for a long time, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can get the Bran and Jamie getting together. Like, they needed to do that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But
Gendry getting Storm's End, a little bit of fan service. I wanted that.
Sure, that's fine. Gendry getting Storm's End is fine, even if he didn't kneel and all of that. It makes, whatever, makes some sense. But, Danny being crazy, Pod having menage a trois, like all this, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, people died, like they had the stench of bodies or whatever, that the Hound was talking about. And first of all, the Hound's conversation with Gendry to start things out is one of the most nonsensical things I could ever, like, imagine. Like, Gendry's like, "Where's Arya?" And he's like, "Oh, you're just trying to get laid." And Gendry's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Well, you should be trying to get laid." Like, what? Like, what are you saying? Like, you're like a shitty girlfriend, like getting angry at me for no matter what I do. Jesus. And then, like, Davos, like, telling Tyrion about, like, his thing with Melisandre because he has no one else to freaking talk to. I mean, why would Tyrion care? Tyrion doesn't know this story. Tyrion killed your fucking son. Like this is like the worst choice. And then,
he should have been talking about it with Jon because Jon is like,
Jon,
way more.
Jon knows Melisandre and knows what happened. He has some sort of history of things.
Right.
Oh, God. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if I liked anything. I don't know, like, then Gendry proposing to Arya, which...
Well, once again, I guess, and it's like poetry, it rhymes because, like, well, you have a son, we have a daughter, join our house this season 1. Poetry, it rhymes, but...
The problem is they blew that load when she said, "That's not you," to Nymeria. She can't say, "That's not me," again. She can't keep calling back to the season 1, like, over and over again. It's just silly. Jamie and Brienne hooking up, it was done fine, but it was done, like, they didn't have any good conversation. He comes into a room and is like, "It's hot, you didn't drink," and then they have sex. Like, over what?
Their sexual tension, I'll also forgive that in this sense because their sexual tension has been building for many seasons. So,
It was just so silly that they made her, like, all ashamed of being a virgin. Like, you're in a society that praises virginity,
right?
At least in women. Like, her nickname is the Maid of Tarth. Like, you can't be like, oh my gosh, she hasn't had sex. Like, what? I don't know. Like, it's not the about the Breakfast Club trap, that they talk about, where for a girl, like, it's impossible because if you've had sex, you're a slut, and if you haven't had sex, you're a prude. Like, that doesn't exist in the middle. This is the Middle Ages. Like, it's okay to be a prude, But oh God, and then I don't know.
Go ahead.
And then everything shifts to, like, the birthright issue, which ends up having no impact on anything in the end, right? Like, Jon being the true heir, like, everybody talks about it a bunch, and Jon and Dany worry about it a bunch, but it doesn't actually do anything, right?
He doesn't want it. That's his entire catchphrase this entire season. "I don't want it." Oh, it's awful, Jon Snow. "I don't want it." Like, that's all he says the entire fucking season.
Right. But it's ultimately not the thing that tears them apart.
It's not. It's just her coming out of nowhere going loco.
Yeah, but her
wanting to bring the world under her banner for some reason, which was never a thing they discussed.
I mean, this is the thing: is her going loco about no one loving her or Jon being the real king. Does that cause her to burn King's Landing down? And if so, how?
Like I said, that's why. Like, if I would have done this, if I ever do a season 8 fix or whatever, like, that's what I would do. I would have, like, all of her dragons dying add to her, like, the breakdown of her mental makeup. Like, it would make more sense that, these dragons not only are her children, but they're rooted inside her. They have that connection. It would just make sense because you're right. It just comes out of nowhere. The one thing that I really didn't like going back at it all is, like, the whole, like, conquering Westeros and then the world. Like, where did that even come from? No. Like, that's so new. Like first off, Targaryen, focus on conquering Dorne first. Then we'll go to the world, because your family does not have a good reputation with, let's just calm the fuck down.
There's a lot of jumps in motivation that come from nowhere.
Right.
Like, all of a sudden, the Hound wanting to kill his brother. Like, where the hell did that come from? He's had his whole life to hunt down his brother. All of a sudden, he wants to do it now, Had Arya gone first, maybe it would have made sense, and the Hound was following her. Mm-hmm. But instead, the Hound is, like, heading to King's Landing to kill his brother. Like, why? Like, how old's the Hound? Like, 50? He went, like, 40 years? 40 some years?
You could argue there was never a really good opportunity to do it, and I guess he wanted to go ransom off Arya first, and then that didn't work out, and then he quote-unquote dies, but then gets brought back by Septon Ray, and then he tries to live a new life. That can't happen, so he meets up with the Brotherhood, and they have a mission, which he makes it his own mission for some reason.
Well, he had all the time before the events of first season. I mean, the Mountain doesn't do anything to the Hound. I mean, they get in their little fight at the Hands Tourney, but
right.
But other than that little skirmish at the Hands Tourney, what would have triggered the Hound into wanting to kill the Mountain? Like, at this point.
Yeah, you had an idea about that conversation with Sansa and the Hound in episode 4,
had somebody,
where
like,
he goes into his
him,
sister.
Yeah. Had they had something like a reminder of his sister or his face or anything like that, then it would have made sense. But it was just this jump, and then, not to mention, you get into these, like, it just gets worse and worse. Like, once they start it starts escalating. Like, the ridiculousness of the episode escalates. Like, at first you're like, okay, this is really ridiculous. Like, Dany acting funny at the banquet is ridiculous. Okay. All of these people, like, leaking this secret and it being this big deal and being, is ridiculous. And then, oh God, Tyrion and Jaime at the frickin' inn with Bronn showing up, and, like, that scene, which has just, like, ridiculous. Like, why Bronn is able to just walk into Winterfell and, like, shoot arrows at the Queen's hand, and get away, and, like, what kind of security you got? It just starts escalating, and then, they forget about Euron's fleet.
So this is what I wanted to talk about. The episode was bad, but what makes it even worse is the behind the scenes stuff where David Benioff, he goes, well, Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet, but 5 minutes ago she was devising a plan on how to, like, combat the fleet, and it was on the map. Like, how could she forget it? Like, it's right there
with all of her advisors there.
And what even irks me off is what really irks me is that, okay, what's the director that you said like has a hard on for, like, bringing back stuff from previous seasons? Was it Brian Cogman?
Brian Cogman.
Is that the guy?
Brian Cogman.
Right.
Brian Cogman. Yeah.
See, here's the thing. You're a huge fan of Roman history, so am I. And even in ancient battles and all that stuff, you would always send out a scout to find out enemy troop positions, if there's a trap coming, ambush, terrain, all that stuff. That's just basic warfare. You send a scout ahead of time to just survey the area to make sure everything you're walking into is, like, nice and solid. And we've seen them using scouts before in previous season. Season 1, Tywin sends a scout to count Stark troop forces, and Robb captures the guy, lets him go, and then, makes Tywin think he's coming for him, but actually goes to Jaime instead. Yeah. In Season 3, Dany herself kind of scouts out when the Second Sons arrive to assist the Yunkish. So they've used scouts before. Why are they not using scouts now? You said something incredibly hilarious that I will always love about Season 7, Episode 1, when Dany, like, lands on Dragonstone. She just walks in there willy-nilly. Right. Cersei could have sent an assassin with a crossbow and fucked her up right there.
There could have been, like, 10 people left over from Stannis. Like, she should have expected some of Stannis' forces, and she goes walking in first. Like, imagine one of Stannis' like, castellan just stabs her. Gotcha! Like...
And it's just that's what really irks me is that like nobody uses scouts anymore. Nobody's using like like actual formations and like troop composite. Nobody's using any of this stuff anymore. They're just doing stuff, and they're just like this. The story and the script have to be stupid for the sake of getting Dany to go crazy, I guess.
And that's the thing. I mean, even with that stupid Dragonstone thing, that just overly ceremonial, like self-congratulatory fucking scene, like. Say Stannis was dumb enough to just take everything, like not even leave one person behind. He packs it all up and leaves. Okay, in the real world, like some sort of fucking fisherman squatter would fucking move into that castle.
Right.
You know, and Dany would bust open the doors and there would be a bunch of like squatters like in the corners being like, oh, like, you know. Using a Stannis banner as a blanket, you know, and like there's no way it would be empty. Like it's just there's just. Not
to mention, the one thing that always bothered me is why did she even land in Dragonstone? Like if you look at a map of where Slaver's Bay is, it's like in the southernmost part of Essos. She would have to go west, where she would eventually hit Volantis, and then. Right. Why wouldn't she just go to Dorne? It's right there.
She'd have to consciously choose not to land in Dorne, where her allies are, in order to go there. And
she would have to go like north.
Right, and it's the same. It's the same here. Like Dany is choosing to go. She's choosing to fly a dragon over water, rather than taking it over land, where a dragon can like rest and eat. Like she's purposely choosing like this perilous task of like going over water for some reason. You think the reason is to protect her fleet from something, but it's just no. She's just flying with it,
or she wants to be the scout herself. Like I don't.
Right, which she does, a pretty shitty job. But yeah.
Right.
And of all the
I will say this though. I will say I do for as long as they've been absent, the Greyjoys have always been kind of shitted on by the showrunners. The showrunners do have that bias. I mean, there's been plenty of like people complaining that the showrunners hate Stannis and his character for some reason.
Yeah.
And it does become apparent after a while. But the Greyjoys have always been shitted on, and I am kind of glad that Euron comes in as someone who knows how to use a fleet of ships and how to wreck stuff up. I like that. I like that Euron is able to come in here and fuck everything up. But what I don't like is how he's able to. I don't like is how they make him almost invincible, and then at the very next episode, they make him not as invincible anymore.
Right? Had they I mean, that's the biggest contradiction, right? Is that suddenly these unstoppable dragons are neutralized by scorpions. And it's like, okay, fine, we're gonna accept that, and then you're gonna undo it the next episode immediately, because
it's funny. I don't know if you remember this. Season 6, episode 9, the Battle of the Bastards. The first half of the entire episode is the Battle of Fire in Marine, and it takes 3 dragons at the same time to fire up one ship. And it takes them like a couple of minutes. I don't know if you remember this. It takes them a couple of minutes to set it on fire. Come to this fucking episode 5, she just flies by them, and Drogon can just sneeze, it blows the fuck up.
Fucking all 1,000 ships are in the same place, and they all get burned. They all get burned at once. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh god, it's bad. Not to mention, the ridiculousness of like only being able to catch Missandei, but like nobody else.
Right.
And just the weirdness. So I will say that the diplomatic scene between Qyburn and Tyrion.
That was kind of cool. I didn't mind that.
No, I didn't mind the conversation between Qyburn and Tyrion. I thought that was fine. But the weirdness of it is the whole like standing out in a field where it seems like they could be hit, and Tyrion walking to where he can clearly be hit, and being able to hear each other over, these incredibly long. Like if it's a short distance to be heard, why aren't they getting killed? If it's a long distance where they can't be killed, how can they be heard? And all of these things, like the whole thing kind of just distorts space, and it doesn't feel right in that sense.
they had a bunch of scorpions aiming right at them. Cersei could have Cersei could have ended this right there, but she chose to be a Charlie Chaplin mustache villain, and I'm going to kill your friend in front of you, and I'm going to laugh. Like, it was so stupid. Just open fire. It's right there, just right there. Just shoot her right there. What are you gonna do? Just aim for her dragon, and then as she's running away, send in the men on horses to run them down. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? Like, the battle was won, you asshole. You had them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like a Bond villain at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, mwahahaha. I am not rational. Ha ha ha.
I love that. I love how Austin Powers even parodies it. Dr. Evil captures them, he puts them in there, and he shuts the door. Like,
Dad,
what are you doing, Dad?
I could go to my room and get a gun right now.
Like, we could both shoot him.
Right. Like, why? There's nothing. I mean, I'm looking at the scene. Like, how many people does Dany have? She literally has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 by 12. So say it's 144 unsullied. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't think Cersei has more than 144 people?
The Golden Company. Just have them charge out there.
Charge out there. Anybody, like... Or like all of your bannermen in the area, right? Like the House Stokeworth or whatever. Like you have her surrounded. You have like she, there's this dragon, but you have scorpions. I don't know, but even with the dragon, I feel like you could get to them before they could get to the dragon, and at least capture Grey Worm and Tyrion. Like, maybe Dany could get back. Maybe they get her back to the dragon and he flies off. But you just caught Tyrion and you caught Grey Worm or whoever, Mm-hmm. So it's just such a weird scene, just like with the distortion of space. I don't know how like they blocked it or thought about it in that sense.
Wouldn't you want to be a fly on that wall when they're writing this episode? Like this, because this is really the episode. I've had several people like who read the leaks and some who didn't. People who read the leaks were like, I'm not watching this episode. It's so stupid. I'm like, why? Then I get to it. I'm like, oh, that's why. And then people who didn't read the leaks, who were watching episodes with us, this is the episode where they kind of gave up on Thrones. Like, this is the episode that really pissed people off, especially with David Benioff coming out of nowhere and saying she kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. Like, come on, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Stop.
Also, do you think that the order went correct? Like, do you think they should have killed the dragon and then killed Missandei? Like, doesn't it make more sense to have the dragon be the ultimate?
What do you mean, like have the scorpions fire on Drogon and then kill Missandei?
Well, I'm saying have Missandei die earlier in the episode and then have the scorpions kill Rhaegal later, because Rhaegal dying is a bigger deal, right?
Right.
I mean, Missandei, yes, like
that's Dany's friend, but this is Dany's war asset.
Right.
And she has that connection to them. She, quote unquote, birthed them, I guess, in fire. So
right, supposedly her child. Like,
right.
Who is supposed to be more important, a child or a friend?
But how would Missandei die, though? So she's on the boat, and I guess she gets impaled by a scorpion, and Dany witnesses it. Then how does Rhaegal die?
I mean, what they could do is they could have the ship, they could have the fleet get attacked, and then Missandei die at sea then and there. Mm-hmm. And then later for treating, she has 2 dragons, and one's too close, and Cersei like opens fire with her scorpions and Rhaegal.
So she tries one last time at Tyrion's behest to make a deal, get her to surrender.
And then a dragon dies because of it. Then you have more to blame Tyrion for, because the treating led to the death of a dragon.
Right. What I would actually... See, because what I would love to do is have Viserion die during the battle of King's Landing. That it would make Dany's like all of a sudden wanting to burn people up way more apparent. Because if when there's a moment where she's fucked up everybody and she lands on like a building or something and she stops. If Viserion was there and she was about to stop and let it go, then all of a sudden out of nowhere, large doors open on a building and like the scorpion takes out Viserion, makes her go crazy, she snaps it in there, no more mercy. That would make more sense to her turn.
It would make a lot more sense, but I will say that wouldn't be foreshadowed either. But Like Dany going nuts over the death of a dragon in the battle would make complete sense. But unfortunately they were foreshadowing Dany going nuts over the birthright issue and not being loved, right? Like that's the theme of the Dany theme for the season is she comes to in the opening scene. She comes into Winterfell and Jon says Northerners don't like outsiders. Boom, first hit to Dany's ego. Then you get Sansa. Boom, second hit to Dany's ego. Jorah says, why don't you make peace with Sansa? She tries to talk to him. Boom, it doesn't go well. Third hit to Dany's ego. Then you've got the birthright issue. Boom, fourth hit. Then you've got the banquet where no one's talking to her and they're praising Jon. Boom, fifth hit. And then you've got Jon not wanting to have sex with her anymore. And that's another hit. Boom. And so they're building this insecurity over being loved and the birthright and how, they're going to love Jon and they're not going to love Dany and all that mumbo jumbo. But then it switches gears. It switches gears to vengeance. Vengeance for Rhaegal, vengeance for Missandei. Yeah? And so now you have a completely different issue on why Dany's going crazy. Now she's going crazy not because she's going to be loved, but because she wants vengeance. They try to portray it. She does have a conversation where she says, "Oh, if not love, then fear." But the problem is you're muddying the water with Missandei and Rhaegal. Missandei and Rhaegal is about vengeance, not love.
But here's the thing, though. Missandei isn't a big enough character in Dany's world to really invoke that. You know how they should have done it in hindsight?
Mm.
Instead of Jorah dying in episode 3, Barristan dies. Instead of having Barristan die back in, season 4, season 5? Yeah. Have him survive until this point, and he dies defending her. And then Jorah's the one captured, and Jorah's the one beheaded.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They built up Missandei as this huge thing for the end of the episode, and it would make more sense if Missandei makes more sense for Grey Worm's arc. I'll grant, but it doesn't really make sense for Dany's arc. Dany has lost close people before. She lost Irri. She lost Barristan. And she didn't go nuts those times. She kept it together.
So, originally Jorah was supposed to apparently join the Night's Watch with Jon, so I feel as though you switch out Missandei for Jorah or someone... Who else does she have, though? She doesn't have a lot of people. Switch out Missandei for Jorah, and her going fucking bonkers just makes way more sense to me. But you'd have to keep Barristan alive from, season 5 onwards.
Right. This is the whole thing, and I don't know if it's subverting expectations or what the plan was, but Dany is going bonkers for reasons not built up to. And right. Jon and Dany's relationship falls apart for reasons not built up to.
He's not into incest. He makes that very clear.
Well, he's not really. He never says it explicitly, but I guess that's implicit that he's no longer into the thing. Even though that in the books, uncle, niece, aunt, nephews, that can definitely be a marriage. Mm-hmm. But they were building up to Dany going crazy for reason A, but she goes crazy for reason B. They're building up Dany and Jon having their rift over reason A, but they have their rift over reason B. They have their rift over Dany being too confident in her rightness. And it has nothing to do with the birthright issue. And it has nothing to do with Sansa and Arya. It just has to do with her conviction that she's right.
It really does feel like a bunch of people writing a different script and trying to just jumble it together. They had a year, man, to write this all down and do it right. They had a full year of
with professional writers,
professional, quote unquote.
I'm just saying that when this gets me back to how did Arya survive falling in the canal, and all these fan theories came out. And fan theories are just so much better than what actually happened, Mm-hmm. It's the same. You can put down so many great ideas, and I've heard great ideas on what they should have done on season 6, and it's all better than like it's almost like somebody went out of their way to make it bad. How could you screw it up this bad? You know,
They really should have brought George in for the final season. At least bring him in. Like, what is he doing? Like, besides attending Comic-Con and random ass places, and attending HBO meetings for them to make another one of his series, one of his books, a series. Like, they really should have brought George in to check the script and see what was going on with it. It was a final season. Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Well, regardless, the episode 4, everybody says it's one of the worst episodes. I wouldn't say it's one of the worst episodes, but it is pretty bad.
yeah, we forget. We forget. People forget how bad certain episodes are.
in season 6, especially season 6, there was a bunch of episodes that were super awful, super terrible. At least this one,
At least it's entertaining. Like, you're never.
I guess.
I'll grant that you're never bored in this episode. Like, it's just a lot of shock, one thing after the other. Mm-hmm. I do remember when it ended, it being pretty shocked that Rhaegal died and Missandei died. Like, I remember you texting me and being like, "Oh shit, this episode was brutal," which is, that was your initial.
It was a brutal episode. I mean, the way Rhaegal goes out, like, he is severely fucked up, and Missandei going down in such a brutal manner, like, that was vicious. When the mountain just beheads her like that was a brutal episode. But also brutal in terms of writing, because it was just so kind of meh.
There was just a lot of random shit. Like, God, I just remembered, like, the random scene where the Starks have an intervention for Jon at the tart tree about Dany, and you're like,
Intervention.
yeah, you're like, where did that come from?
Bran's just there. It's his decision. Okay.
I've got to tell you something. Why would they just told you that they hate your girlfriend, and now you're like, I need to tell you something. I'm actually the real king, and I'm giving you another reason to hate my girlfriend. Oh man.
Oh God. Jon is a stupid asshole. Oh, and the other big thing was one of the reasons I actually did really like this episode, 10 out of 10, is because it's the last appearance of Gilly. Thank fucking God. But Jon doesn't pet Ghost, which was like a huge scandal.
Oh,
like,
God,
a huge
yeah.
scandal.
Well, of course it was because it wasn't his real goodbye. It was already written in that he was going to come back. He has this like long goodbye with Gilly, with frickin' Gilly, and then nothing with Ghost. And you're like, what? When did Jon have this like long relationship with Gilly?
Right.
Okay. But it was Gilly's. It had to be Gilly's curtain call. Mm. Oh God. Or I'm also reminded that I think Varys and Tyrion have to like badmouth Dany like twice in the episode. They have like 2 identical scenes of them like badmouthing her. Like one.
Tyrion's just an asshole. Really, he's like the worst hand of the king or hand of the queen, or he's the worst right hand I've ever seen.
Oh, God.
It was really bad. It's a far cry from Tyrion season 2, back when it was written by George R.R. Martin. They were following Clash of Kings, but he's just so awful. He's just so bad. So bad, but not as worse as Cersei being the bad guy. Just for the sake of it.
And they go all through that stuff in episode 2 about how important it is that they save Tyrion's brain.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We need to preserve Tyrion's brain. You need to go down into the crypts because we need to preserve your brain.
You're very important.
For what? For what? So that you can convince Jon later to kill you? Like, what the fuck?
Preston, Tyrion needed to be saved. Come on, man. It's not your decision to make. It's not your call.
It's not your choice. It's not your decision to make. You need to choose. Oh, God.
They gotta save Tyrion's brain. It's so stupid.
They've got to save Tyrion's brain. It's the most important brain in the world.
See, and that's playing on the audience's love for Tyrion in the earlier seasons. Because if you think about it, ever since season 5 hits, Tyrion doesn't do anything. Season 5, I actually really did enjoy, but if you go back to it, Tyrion season 5 onwards doesn't do much. Remember all of season 6 where he just sits around making jokes with Missandei and Grey Worm?
Oh, right.
That go nowhere?
This is after him like presenting himself to Dany at being like,
I'm the gift.
I am the gift.
Yeah.
Oh, I am the gift in your enormous brain. Your enormous, incredible brain that needs to be protected because it's priceless for all of your great ideas, like not attacking King's Landing. Oh, God. Ugh.
That's what I was thinking about the other day. Like, if you think about it, Tyrion season 1, season 2 definitely, a bit of season 3, and a good chunk of season 4, great character. But when season 5 hits, when he just is like all depressed and whatnot, he's making the trek to Marine with Jorah, and season 6 where he just sits around, season 7 where he just gives bad advice throughout the entire episode.
Right. I mean, he gets Jorah grayscale. Because Jorah has to frickin' rescue him.
That's right.
Then he convinces Dany to send Jorah away. Bad move. Then he fails to make peace with the slavers, so Dany has to rescue them. Then he comes up with a really crappy plan for battle by not attacking King's Landing. Then he has this brilliant assault on Casterly Rock that's pointless because they abandoned it. Oh God, it's just he does nothing. He does absolutely nothing.
If you think about it, Tyrion is also makes sure that Westeros is almost severely fucked, because had they attacked King's Landing originally, they would have deposed Cersei, and Dany would have kept most of her forces, the Tyrell, the Martell soldiers, her own Greyjoy fleet. Maybe she could even gotten Euron on her side, or killed Euron, and gotten the rest of the Iron Fleet who followed Euron on her side. Her army to fight the dead would have been much bigger, I guess you could call it. It would have been huge. She would have had all 3 dragons to go in there, because undead Viserion really messed up Winterfell. It's just
I mean, they wouldn't. Well, I mean, I guess Tyrion did say don't go north of the wall, and she went anyway. So I suppose he had one good piece of advice that wasn't followed.
He
had one good piece of advice.
The one time she doesn't follow it, it's just.
Oh God, I think we've talked this episode into the ground.
More so than it already has been. Guys, thank you for joining us on this episode. Tune in next time when we'll discuss episode 5 and 6 and close out our season 8 review. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking for it. We will get back to Fire and Blood after we are done with season 8. Don't worry, I got you guys covered. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Preston, for joining me. And we will see you all next time. Have a good one.